At my sister's housewarming party, my mother called my unborn baby a burden in front of a room full of people. I'm Marissa, a 28-year-old financial analyst. We were gathered in the pristine new kitchen of my sister's townhouse in Pennsylvania. The stone countertops gleamed, and champagne glasses clinked as guests showered my sister with praise. My mother stood beside her, beaming as if this luxurious property was her own achievement. When the toasts quieted down, I took a deep breath and announced that I was pregnant. The cheerful chatter died instantly. My mother's smile vanished. Before anyone could congratulate me, she scoffed, loudly declaring my baby would just be a burden I couldn't afford. My sister's husband chimed in, chuckling as he added a sharp remark about how I should take notes from his wife on how to be successful. The room fell dead silent. Everyone expected tears. I didn't give them the satisfaction. I just maintained a polite smile and kept quiet. My free hand slipped into my handbag, my fingertips brushing against a thick folder hidden inside. That folder held the certified bank receipts, undeniable proof that my money had bought this very house they were celebrating. If you've ever felt undervalued by your own family, hit subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. But before I ruin their perfect night, let me explain how they stole from me in the first place. 2 years before that party, my father's repair shop closed for good. I am Marissa Cole, and I was 30 years old at the time. I worked in the payroll and accounts payable department for a freight and logistics company located just outside of Pittsburgh. My daily life revolved around processing complex invoices, balancing corporate ledgers, and ensuring that everyone received their paychecks on time. Because of my profession, I was naturally meticulous with money, always keeping our own household budget strictly organized. My husband, Adam Price, shared that exact same practical mindset. He worked long, grueling hours as an HVAC technician. Adam was a man of very few words, preferring to let his consistent actions speak for him. He was incredibly grounded, entirely reliable, and deeply understood the true value of hard-earned money. Together, we lived a quiet, comfortable life that was firmly built on careful financial planning, shared goals, and deep mutual respect. My father, Warren Cole, operated entirely differently. He had owned an independent appliance repair shop for over 2 decades. Ultimately, the business didn't fail because of sudden economic downturns or fierce corporate competition. It collapsed entirely due to a mountain of unpaid taxes, huge debts owed to various part suppliers, and years of poor management. He simply ignored the administrative realities of running a business until the shop was completely buried in debt. The harsh consequences of his negligence became clear the afternoon my mother, Diane, called me in an absolute panic. She was crying, explaining that the county was threatening them over severely delinquent property taxes. Furthermore, their homeowner's insurance was on the verge of being permanently canceled, and overdue utility bills were stacked dangerously high on their kitchen counter. Stunned by the sheer severity of their situation, I immediately asked the most obvious question. Why hadn't she reached out to my sister Kelsey for help first? Diane's tone instantly shifted from desperate to fiercely protective. She quickly dismissed the idea, stating that Kelsey was busy preparing for her bright future. "We cannot drag Kelsey down with this ugly financial mess," she insisted, speaking as if my own financial stability and future plans were somehow less important or entirely expendable. That evening, I sat down with Adam to seriously discuss the crisis. He listened quietly, analyzing the situation with his usual cool logic. He didn't tell me to abandon my parents in their time of need, but he offered strict, pragmatic advice. "If you are going to help them out of this deep hole," he warned me, "you absolutely must establish firm limits. You need to define a specific dollar amount and a clear time frame for this assistance. You cannot allow this to become a permanent, never-ending obligation." I agreed with him completely. I genuinely believed this was just a temporary emergency, a brief financial storm they simply needed help weathering. I transferred the funds to cover their most pressing debts. My father eagerly accepted the massive bailout, but he immediately imposed one firm condition. He aggressively demanded that I never mention this financial arrangement to any of our extended relatives. His pride was deeply wounded. He absolutely refused to let anyone in the family think he was surviving by leeching off his daughter's hard-earned paycheck. I foolishly agreed to keep my mouth shut to protect his ego. Looking back now, agreeing to that total secrecy was my first monumental mistake. The first transfer was supposed to be temporary, but temporary became the first week of every month. I found myself establishing a regular routine of sending them money. My paychecks were systematically drained to cover their ongoing property taxes, their crucial homeowners insurance premiums, the fluctuating electric bills, and a frustrating string of small, lingering debts Warren had hidden from his failed business. My mother, Diane, quickly adapted to this new financial dynamic. Calling me became a convenient habit. She never bothered to ask how I was doing, if I was tired, or how Adam and I were managing our own household. The conversations were always brief and transactional, usually ending with a casual question about whether I could transfer just a little bit more cash to cover another unexpected expense. If I ever hesitated, Warren would inevitably chime in from the background. He would confidently weaponize his role as a father, loudly reminding me about all the heavy sacrifices they made to raise me, skillfully twisting my hesitation into immediate, overwhelming guilt. Meanwhile, my older sister, Kelsey, occupied a completely different universe in their eyes. She was showered with endless praise. My parents proudly paraded her around as the golden child, repeatedly declaring to anyone who would listen that she was the one who made something of herself. Kelsey had recently married Nathan Reed. Nathan had a prestigious, highly stable corporate job and possessed a charming, polished way of speaking. Warren absolutely adored him, constantly praising him at family dinners as a highly respectable man who truly understood how to build a secure, prosperous future. My husband, Adam, received the exact opposite treatment. Despite his incredibly hard work and the undeniable fact that our money was keeping a roof over their heads, Warren constantly demeaned him. My father would dismissively refer to my husband as simply the air conditioner guy, dripping with thinly veiled condescension. Diane was equally dismissive. She never once asked Adam about his difficult workday or his career aspirations. The only time she ever acknowledged his technical skills was when she eagerly expected him to drive over and fix their broken household appliances for absolutely free. The stark hypocrisy reached a breaking point during a publicized community fundraiser for the local school library. Diane desperately wanted to maintain her prestigious social standing among her wealthy friends. Pressured by her subtle hints, I quietly transferred a significant sum of money so she could make a prominent donation. At the grand charity banquet, Diane confidently stood before the wealthy crowd, graciously accepting public applause. She smiled warmly and boldly declared that the Cole family always believed in the deep moral importance of giving back to the community. Sitting in the audience, the toxic family pattern finally became crystal clear to me. Kelsey effortlessly received all the loud applause and endless admiration. Diane successfully secured her pristine, generous social reputation. Warren comfortably maintained his fragile, demanding masculine pride. And behind the scenes, Adam and I quietly paid the heavy financial price for all their glamorous illusions. Frustrated but still trying to keep the peace, I quietly opened a blank digital spreadsheet on my laptop. I began recording every single dollar I transferred to them, documenting every paid invoice. I didn't plan to actually confront them with the growing numbers yet. I just desperately needed a private record to prove to myself that I wasn't going crazy. The receipt that changed everything did not come in an envelope. It came as a banking alert on my phone. Adam and I had just recently discovered that I was pregnant. We hadn't shared the wonderful news with anyone in my family yet, wanting to savor the secret. For years, we had been quietly building a joint savings account. It was our designated baby fund and a modest nest egg for a future house down payment. Every single dollar was fiercely earned through Adam's grueling overtime shifts and my careful budgeting over the past 3 years. I was sitting at my desk when my phone aggressively vibrated. A glaring notification informed me that a massive wire transfer had just completely drained our hard-earned savings. Panicking, I immediately logged into the banking app, desperately hoping it was merely a terrifying system glitch. The balance read 0. My hands trembling, I immediately called the bank's fraud department and connected with an officer named Tara Jenkins. After verifying my identity, Tara delivered a devastating truth. The massive wire hadn't been an external hack by a stranger. It was fully authenticated using an incredibly old, forgotten joint access authorization tied to my mother, Diane, from an account setup back in my college days, which I foolishly never updated. Tara informed me the entire sum was securely wired directly into a specialized real estate escrow account. I had absolutely no idea whose property transaction this was funding. Furious and deeply confused, I immediately dialed my mother's number. I furiously demanded an immediate explanation about the massive unauthorized withdrawal that had just ruined our future plans. Diane smoothly deflected the accusation. She sighed dramatically, telling me I was just being overly emotional and irrationally stressed out because I was pregnant. My blood ran completely cold. I hadn't told a single soul about the pregnancy. How could she possibly know? The chilling realization that she was either snooping through our private mail or eavesdropping hit me incredibly hard. But the missing money remained my immediate priority. I urgently called my oldest friend, Erin Walsh, who professionally managed operations at a reputable local title company. I frantically asked her to track the escrow number. Erin immediately stopped me, explaining strictly that she could not legally access or disclose another person's private mortgage file. However, she offered perfectly legal guidance. Because my name was legally on the source account and I possessed the official wire receipt, I had the absolute legal right to demand the receiving title office confirm the exact destination of my own specific funds. She instructed me on exactly what official terminology to use with the bank's wire department to trace the transaction's destination. I rigidly followed Erin's exact instructions. Hours later, a highly secure email from the receiving title agency arrived in my inbox, officially confirming the wire's ultimate destination in order to legally comply with my direct inquiry. I stared blindly at the digital document on my glowing screen, feeling entirely numb. The registered escrow account receiving our entire life savings belonged to a newly constructed luxury townhouse property located in a highly desirable Pennsylvania neighborhood. The official listed buyers on the pending real estate transaction were none other than my sister, Kelsey, and her husband, Nathan Reed. Our painstakingly built baby fund had been secretly stolen to silently finance my sister's glamorous new dream home, leaving Adam and me with absolutely nothing. I stopped calling my mother after that, because every answer she gave me made the lie cleaner. Instead of arguing blindly over the phone, Adam and I sat down at our kitchen table and systematically gathered our paperwork. We printed out the initial bank alert, the official wire confirmation receipt, months of detailed account statements, my personal spreadsheet tracking every previous transfer, and even the digital receipt verifying my genuine donation to the community fund. Erin guided me on exactly how to officially request the documentation tied specifically to my drained funds without crossing any legal lines. The bank finally provided a scanned document that made my stomach turn. It was a formal gift letter. The document explicitly stated that I was voluntarily gifting our entire savings to Kelsey and Nathan for their home purchase. I stared at the bottom of the page. The signature scribbled there looked vaguely like my handwriting, but it definitely wasn't mine. Furthermore, the contact email and phone number listed on the official form were completely unfamiliar. They had forged my identity to steal our future. My first instinct was to scream, but Adam placed a steadying hand on my shoulder. He practically advised me not to call Diane while I was seeing red with anger, and warned me against texting Kelsey until we held physical copies of everything. "Lock everything down first," he instructed quietly. Acting with cold, calculated financial precision, I immediately locked my online banking profile and permanently revoked Diane's ancient access privileges. I aggressively changed every password, placed a strict fraud alert on my credit file, officially reported the massive wire as a disputed transaction, and ruthlessly canceled all automated monthly transfers I had previously set up for my parents. With our accounts secured, I made one very specific phone call to Uncle Paul, my mother's older brother. Paul was a retired tax preparer and a former insurance claims adjuster. He was famous in our extended family for being a man of few words, but he deeply understood the indisputable power of legal paperwork. I calmly explained exactly what had happened and laid out the undeniable evidence I had collected. Uncle Paul didn't immediately promise to blindly take my side. He simply listened, sighed heavily, and stated that he would attend the upcoming housewarming party to hear everything himself. The very next morning, a text message arrived from Kelsey. She cheerfully invited me to her highly anticipated housewarming party, excitedly mentioning that our mother wanted the entire family to stand together for a beautiful picture in front of the new kitchen. Shortly after, Diane sent me a separate, private message. She instructed me to arrive early to help set up the appetizers. She explicitly warned me not to do anything that might ruin Kelsey's special day, adding that if I had any personal news to share, I absolutely needed to wait until after the party was over. I read their messages twice, feeling a sharp, cold resolve settle deeply in my chest. I wasn't going to hide and let them win. I decided right then that I would definitely attend, because that stolen house was exactly where the ugly truth needed to be spoken. By Saturday afternoon, Kelsey's new townhouse looked like a page from a real estate brochure. The Pennsylvania property was fully decorated for the grand housewarming party. The gleaming kitchen was the absolute centerpiece, boasting a massive quartz island completely covered with elegant trays of expensive catered appetizers. Professionally framed photos of Kelsey and Nathan smiling brightly were strategically placed by the front door. Excited guests wandered freely, loudly touring the freshly painted rooms and marveling at the expensive hardwood floors. Diane thoroughly enjoyed playing the role of the immensely proud, highly successful mother. She constantly paraded Kelsey around the crowded living room, loudly boasting to their extended relatives about how the young couple had worked so incredibly hard to officially achieve this beautiful American dream. She deliberately peppered her loud speeches with subtle, calculated hints, implying that she and Warren had made massive personal sacrifices to ensure their golden child's ultimate financial success. Warren was equally busy commanding attention near the expensive new patio doors. He loudly praised Nathan, proudly declaring that his new son-in-law was exactly the kind of highly capable man who truly knew how to properly take care of a home and beautifully provide for a growing family. Warren purposefully shot condescending side glances toward Adam, loudly making demeaning jokes about how working as a simple HVAC technician could never afford such absolute luxury. True to his grounded nature, Adam remained perfectly stoic, completely ignoring the blatant insults and refusing to take the pathetic bait. Uncle Paul quietly slipped into the party through the back entrance. True to his reputation, he immediately grabbed a small plate of food and faded smoothly into the background. He observed everything with sharp, calculating eyes, speaking to almost no one. I knew he was carefully watching the extravagant display, waiting patiently to see if my devastating claims were actually true. I kept the heavy manila folder securely hidden inside my designer handbag. Shortly after I arrived, Kelsey enthusiastically grabbed my arm, eagerly pulling me away for a private tour of the property. She proudly dragged my hand across the flawless stone kitchen counters and excitedly pointed out the custom lighting in the spacious living room. The down payment was definitely the hardest part to figure out, Kelsey admitted, with a bright, entirely oblivious laugh. But Mom and Dad totally came through for us at the absolute last minute. We couldn't have done it without their generous financial gift. They did? I asked softly, my voice perfectly steady, despite the raging anger burning deeply in my chest. Kelsey just nodded enthusiastically, completely failing to recognize the dark, heavy meaning carefully hidden behind my simple question. Later that evening, Diane clinked her champagne glass, successfully demanding everyone's immediate attention. She delivered a sickeningly sweet, overly dramatic toast, prompting the entire room to raise their crystal glasses in cheerful celebration of Kelsey and Nathan's perfect new life. As the loud applause finally began to naturally quiet down, I decided it was the perfect moment to speak. Taking a deep breath, I smiled warmly and loudly announced to the gathered crowd that Adam and I were happily expecting a baby. For a brief second, a few surprised relatives began to offer genuine, Happy congratulations. But Diane immediately dragged the joyous atmosphere straight into the dirt. Her fake smile vanished instantly. She scoffed loudly, dramatically rolling her eyes as she cruelly referred to my unborn child as just another massive financial burden that I couldn't possibly handle. Before I could even respond, Warren aggressively chimed in from across the room. "Your sister gave us a beautiful home to be incredibly proud of," he stated coldly, his harsh voice echoing perfectly through the sudden silence. "You just gave us another heavy expense to severely worry about." The entire room fell dead silent. Everyone stared at me, awkwardly waiting for a humiliating emotional breakdown. Adam quietly stepped closer, his warm presence a solid wall of support at my back, but he respectfully allowed me to handle the brutal battle myself. I didn't shed a single tear. Instead, I calmly reached into my bag, pulled out the thick folder, and loudly declared that if everyone was busy celebrating this house, they absolutely deserved to know exactly who had paid for the very first part of it. I did not raise my voice when I opened the folder. That was the part my mother hated most. I smoothly pulled out the first stack of papers and handed them directly to Uncle Paul. It was an itemized spreadsheet detailing every monthly transfer I had made to Diane and Warren over the past 2 years. "This isn't some vague family savings," I announced calmly to the stunned room. "This is exactly $45,000 of my own salary, directly paying off their mounting property taxes and overdue utility bills." Warren immediately scoffed, crossing his arms defensively. "It is perfectly normal for loving parents to accept financial help from their successful children," he argued loudly. Uncle Paul adjusted his glasses, scanning the spreadsheet. "If it is so normal, Warren," Paul asked quietly, his sharp eyes cutting through the tension, "then why did you aggressively force Marissa to keep it an absolute secret from everyone?" Before Warren could formulate a lie, I presented the second piece of evidence. It was an email receipt from Denise Harper, the community fundraiser organizer, undeniably confirming that the massive school library donation had come directly from my personal bank account. "Diane publicly took all the credit," I stated flatly. Diane desperately tried to save face. "You are my daughter! It was still a contribution from the Cole family." I didn't bother arguing about her twisted morals. Instead, I pulled out the final, most devastating document. "On October 12th, I said, letting the date hang heavily in the silent room, "a massive wire transfer completely drained our dedicated baby fund. The destination was the real estate escrow account registered for this exact townhouse." I handed the stamped bank wire confirmation directly to Nathan. Kelsey gasped loudly, stepping back in absolute shock. "What? No, I genuinely thought that money was entirely from Mom and Dad," she stammered, looking frantically between her parents. Nathan's face darkened as he rapidly read the bank document. He instantly understood the severe legal magnitude of the situation. "There's more," I added coldly, dropping the forged gift letter onto the kitchen island. Nathan picked it up, his eyes widening. "This officially claims Marissa voluntarily gifted us the down payment," he read aloud, his voice thick with disbelief. "I never signed that document," I stated clearly. Uncle Paul carefully examined the forged signature. He slowly turned to my mother. "Diane, who exactly prepared this fraudulent paperwork?" Diane finally broke down, sobbing. "You are completely ruining your sister's special day," she shrieked, desperately trying to deflect the blame with tears. Warren stepped forward, his face flushed with anger. "Money inside this family is ultimately family money. We do what we have to do. Money meant for my unborn child is not shared family currency," I fired back, my voice turning to ice. "And my legal identity is certainly not something you are ever allowed to casually use." Nathan turned sharply to his wife. "Did you know about this, Kelsey?" he demanded. The room held its breath as a suffocating silence stretched between them. Kelsey swallowed hard, tears welling in her eyes. "I knew they helped us, but I swear to God, Nathan, I had absolutely no idea they stole the money from Marissa." Nathan nodded grimly, his charming demeanor completely gone. He looked directly at Warren and Diane. "This is severe financial fraud. This situation will be handled strictly with legal paperwork, not with your manipulative tears." I looked at my parents one last time. My accounts are permanently locked, I declared firmly. Every single automated transfer is canceled. My lawyer will be contacting you directly regarding the stolen baby fund and the forged gift letter. Diane's face twisted in pure rage. If you walk out that door right now, Marissa, don't you ever come back? She threatened viciously. Don't worry, I replied, turning away. I'm never coming back. As Adam and I walked out of that house and away from the toxic chaos, I finally felt completely free. To anyone watching this who feels trapped by the obligation of blood, hear me clearly. True family builds you up. They do not systematically tear you down or treat you like a personal ATM. Setting firm boundaries is not a selfish betrayal. It is an act of essential self-preservation. You owe absolutely nothing to people who actively choose to exploit your love. Protect your peace, protect your future, and never be afraid to walk away. The week after the party was quieter than I expected, but quiet did not mean nothing happened. I completely ignored the frantic barrage of incoming calls from Diane and Warren. Adam finally answered one single phone call just to firmly state that all future communication must legally go through our attorney. He didn't yell. His cold, professional tone was more terrifying than any scream. Behind the scenes, the bank officially opened a thorough fraud review regarding the disputed transaction I had reported. Diane was permanently stripped of her ancient access privileges from all my accounts. Operating with extreme caution, I placed strict security alerts on my credit files and rigorously audited every other financial account attached to my name. Shortly after, our lawyer formally issued a severe demand letter to my parents. The legal document demanded the immediate repayment of the stolen escrow funds, demanded a sworn explanation regarding the blatantly forged gift letter, and issued a harsh warning against any future fraudulent use of my identity, under the strict threat of criminal prosecution. Realizing the devastating legal reality, Nathan contacted me privately. He didn't offer pathetic excuses or beg for mercy on Kelsey's behalf. He simply stated that he absolutely refused to start his marriage in a home built on stolen money, acknowledging the terrible injustice that had been done to us. Nathan promised that he and Kelsey would legally sign a strict, legally binding repayment agreement, committing to paying us back every stolen dollar on a highly regulated monthly schedule with added interest. Kelsey later sent a long, tearful text message, deeply apologizing for her blissful ignorance and begging for my ultimate forgiveness. I read her apology, but I deliberately chose not to reply. An apology couldn't magically erase years of blatant favoritism, and I had absolutely no desire to reopen that deeply toxic family relationship. The social consequences hit my parents incredibly hard. Diane rapidly lost her prestigious volunteer position with the community fundraiser. Word of the massive financial betrayal had quickly spread through her wealthy social circles, and Denise Harper, along with several other prominent board members, flatly decided they could no longer trust my mother with managing public charity funds. Meanwhile, Warren abruptly found himself entirely cut off from his primary financial lifeline. Without my monthly bailouts and with no other extended relatives willing to lend him a single dime. After hearing the ugly truth, he was finally forced to deal with his massive tax debts and impending foreclosure completely on his own, without his usual safety net. Uncle Paul called me once to check in. In his typical blunt fashion, he offered a profound piece of wisdom. He told me that cutting ties with toxic relatives isn't an act of cruelty, especially when those people only treat you like family when they desperately need to make a financial withdrawal. Adam and I are now peacefully preparing for our baby in our small, incredibly cozy apartment. We are happier than we have ever been. There will absolutely be no extravagant baby shower hosted by Diane. There will be no fake smiling family photos. There will be no formal invitations extended to them to ever meet their grandchild. I permanently blocked my parents' phone numbers from all our personal devices, leaving only the official legal channel open strictly for processing the required repayment installments from Nathan. As I close this chapter, I want to share one crucial truth. Family simply does not have the right to systematically turn love into an endless invoice. Establishing strict boundaries is not an act of bitter revenge. It is necessary self-preservation. Sometimes, fiercely protecting your own child literally means firmly deciding not to allow certain toxic people to ever become grandparents. Thank you so much for listening to my story all the way to the end. I want to invite you to share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever been the one silently paying the heavy family bills? What would you do if your own family secretly stole your future and then cruelly called your unborn child a burden?